Lydia wonders if there was someone else involved that night and insists they need to do whatever it takes to figure it out, if there is even a chance their daughter didn't do it. Paul doesn't think it's possible and shoots down the idea, saying opening the autopsy could land them all in prison. Lydia accuses him of not wanting to face the truth and suggests he's just trying to forget about Jacob, since he never talks about him. Paul snaps back, saying he doesn't want to relive the worst night of his life every day like she does. Lydia says she doesn't want to relive it either, but she won't let it replace everything else in her life. She can't live like that anymore, and she can't live with him either. Just as she is about to leave, Paul begs her to stay. Carla gives birth to a baby boy. Dennis's mom, Denise, walks in to see the baby, and Dennis asks her why she lied to him his whole life. He demands to know who his real father is. Denise tells him his real father is Jimmy, the man who raised him. She admits she didn't know his biological father well, but kept him away from him until he died. She tries to reassure him, saying she was only trying to protect him. Dennis storms out, and Denise confronts Carla. She's angry, saying she asked Carla for just one thing and couldn't even keep it in her pants. Denise reveals she's been holding on to the lie for 39 years, never telling Dennis the truth, even though she wanted to. She says when you hold on to something that long, the lie just becomes part of the truth. Paul heads over to see Mikey. Mikey brings up how Paul couldn't take 30 minutes out of his life to see him in 3 years. He says he fell off the wagon because of Paul, but Paul insists he called because Mike is his brother, not because he thinks he is a criminal. Mikey tells Paul to do something to fix things with Lydia, get up and fight for her. Meanwhile, Lydia gets a call from the chief medical examiner's office, who tells her that her lawyer Leslie picked up her son's autopsy yesterday. Lydia rushes to see Leslie, knowing she's behind it. When they meet, Leslie admits she went too far. She says she has a compulsion to know things for her job, but she got carried away with this one. She apologizes, saying she never meant to cause Lydia more pain. She explains that while she can't imagine what it's like to lose a child, she does know what it's like to lose the potential of one, and it killed her. Leslie thought that giving Lydia some answers might help. Lydia asks Leslie if she looked at the autopsy, and Leslie confirms she did. She says the gun that killed Lydia's son was a 40 caliber, meaning the gun Lydia has isn't the one used to kill him, since hers is a 9 mm. Meanwhile, Dennis is thinking about buying a new house and mentions it to Carla. She tries to convince him to forgive his mom, saying everyone lies sometimes. She even admits she hid something from him. Her dad is actually a billionaire, but she says he's also a cheating jerk who ruined her mom's life, and she never wanted to feel like she owed him anything. She admits she didn't want to stay with his mom either, so she kept it to herself. Carla says she needed to know Dennis loved her for her, and he assures her he does. She reminds him that his mom loves him too and hands him the phone to call her. Lydia tells Emily the results of Jacob's autopsy. Jacob was shot with a 40 caliber gun, not their 9 mm. She tells Emily it proves she didn't do it. Emily realizes it was never her fault. Later, Margot meets with John. He tells her there is no more money and the prenup is worthless. Margot demands the house in her name. John refuses and demands to know where Harper is. Margot taunts him, then starts hitting herself, shocking John. He insists he's never laid a hand on her, but Margot's brother Bobby walks in and accuses him of doing just that. John tries to defend himself, saying he saved Bobby's life once, but Bobby tells him to just give Margot what she wants if he wants to save himself. Back at Lydia and Paul's, John bursts in, looking for Harper. Lydia sends Emily and Harper to another room to play on Jacob's keyboard, but Harper admits she doesn't know how to play. Lydia is confused, since Jacob gave her lessons for over a year, but Harper says he only gave her one and spent the rest of the time hanging out with Margot. This shocks everyone. Paul and John confront each other. Paul takes John aside and accuses him of killing Jacob. Meanwhile, Lydia storms into Margot's house and accuses her of seducing Jacob. Margot denies it, claiming they just hung out because he seemed lonely. She says Jacob had a crush on her and brought her little gifts. Lydia doesn't buy it and accuses Margot of not really knowing her son. Margot claps back, revealing Jacob was stealing from people. Lydia presses her on how she knew, and Margot admits Jacob got mad when she told him not to come over anymore and threatened to tell John something. Later, John insists to Paul he didn't hurt Jacob. and even liked him. He warns Paul that Margot is dangerous and will say anything to get what she wants. At the same time, Margot tries to blame John for killing Jacob when she's confronted by Lydia. She reaches for a gun in her bag, but Lydia gets the upper hand and holds her at gunpoint. Lydia calls Margot pathetic and storms out. When Lydia gets home, she tells Paul that Margot killed their son. She calls her lawyer and begs Paul not to do anything reckless. Paul retreats to Jacob's room, reminiscing about teaching him baseball and other memories. He breaks down, apologizing to Jacob for not being a better dad, and tells him he loves him. Lydia overhears and tells him to say it to her. Paul says he loves her, and they both cry. He promises to stay by her side, admitting he was scared she wanted a divorce, but Lydia assures him she didn't. Elsewhere, Carla gets a gift from her dad, a toy for their baby boy. While she is busy with the baby, Dennis discovers a $5 million check hidden inside. He pockets it and doesn't tell her. Later, Mikey shows up at Lydia and Paul's house with Lydia's old piano, saying it's his way of repaying her for helping him get clean, and Lydia is touched. In a flashback, it's revealed that Margot caught Jacob stealing from her house. He said he was taking back what he gave her, but Margot threatened to tell everyone he was a thief. When Jacob threatened to tell John about their relationship, Margot denied it and chased him with a gun. She ended up shooting him and fled the scene. Margot is later shown taking a bath when her house catches fire. She screams for help, but John, who had taken Harper and left, had set the fire and seemingly left her to die. 6 months later, Dennis is signing copies of his latest book. Carla is thrilled about their move to their new dream home thanks to a big advance from Dennis's book deal. However, Dennis gets a text from Carla's dad revealing he knows Dennis cashed the $5 million check. The dad asks to meet his grandson, but Dennis keeps ignoring him. Meanwhile, Sarah is pregnant and Lydia and Paul sell their house to her and her partner. As the new owners settle in, they smile at the mandarin tree that Lydia asked them to keep. It turns out Margot survived the fire, though her face is scarred. She is spotted at a bar flirting with a man, but it's Mikey's son Nate, who is a cop. He tells her to enjoy her drink. It will be her last, before calling her by her real name, Luann. John, meanwhile, is shown on a film set having landed a new acting gig. Finally, Paul watches Emily and Lydia perform on stage. A lamp on his table flickers, and he smiles, whispering hi, as if greeting Jacob.